Welcome to the Uncredible Podcast. My name's Jeremy, and I'm Uncredible. Let's get into what's going on the Substack next week. Finally got things kind of narrowed down. Oh, I should mention, you'll notice that things have changed behind me if you've been paying attention. So the decor for the podcast studio, which is basically my basement, was, I'll try to dig up a photo of what this portion of my basement looked like before I did this setup, which it's a very cheap setup, but this was like the nastiest section of my basement, but I cleaned it up and we needed a place to store our outdoor furniture. And so that's what was the decor behind me. And so it's summer and we had to move all that stuff outside for our, it's our patio furniture. And it kind of looked nice behind me. And I've been trying to come up with something to do for the backdrop, so to speak. I have some ideas. I'm torn between putting some of I have like my book that I originally wrote and some degrees and things like that. I don't know. That feels kind of tacky. I've also thought about going to Walmart and printing up some of my running photos. I've got my medals over here on the side. That's another possibility. So I'm trying to think what I want to do. I haven't decided, but for the meantime, we're just going to have this white background and the clock's going to stick around. By the way, if you ever pay attention, the clock's not right. The time is just, it's slow, but it still moves. One of my favorite things about the clock is when I'm editing and I take the little cursor and I scroll, I can see that thing spinning. So that's kind of cool. Anyway, so back to the Substack. We are back on our schedule. Things are kind of clicking along the way I want them to. So I mentioned this last week, but I'm going to try to have this consistent schedule of Monday. I'm going to do an Uncredible, the book preview. I'm ultimately going to have the entire book on the Substack with audio. I launched this past Monday. We had the second portion of the intro. The third portion will be next Monday. I will say that the audio for the first, so one of my earliest posts or articles for the Substack was the first preview, the first sample, and I went back and listened to it, and the audio quality is sketch. So I may update that also next week, but we got next week we'll have on Monday the last section of the introduction for the Uncredible book. We're also going to have our new article, which will be on Wednesday. That article is called People Don't Listen. And I kind of talk about this observation that I've kind of made just dealing with people in general and how difficult it is to give advice it's not difficult to give advice. Everybody wants to give advice, but the problem is people don't listen to it. They don't take it. And I kind of work through why that is, because I think I have a tendency when someone gives me advice to not take it. So it's like, I kind of work through that challenge of like, how do you give advice in a way that somebody will actually take it to heart? I know when I was younger, I used to think that people wouldn't listen to me because I was inexperienced or I didn't have an education. As I got older, I acquired the education. I did all the things, I had experience, I had education. And then I noticed people still weren't listening to me. And it was like, well, why won't they take my advice? Well, it's sort of a thing that I've noticed about people in general is they want to make their own way. They want to learn. They want to learn for themselves. And the best you can do is help them in that process. So rather than telling them your wisdom or telling them what you've been through, you kind of have to give them guided questions and kind of have them figure it out on their own rather than just trying to say it to them, because they're going to immediately question you. And then there's also this thing in I think all of us on some level where we don't want to be told what to do. We want to do it ourselves and be right. We want that sense of feeling like, oh, I came up with this myself, I implemented it, and I did it. And I find that with my running personally is like, I see running coaches and advice and I'm like, no, I kind of want to do it my way. So That article, People Don't Listen, is just sort of a reflection on some of my own rejection of good advice, but also like this frustration that comes with like having good advice to give people and them not taking it, and then struggling through things that you could have avoided all of that if you'd have just listened to me. So there's that weird trying to help people and not being able to. So that'll be on Wednesday. And then Thursday will be a throwback to episode 1. Now this week I do have the clips made. I'm hopefully going to drop them into YouTube today. I'm actually recording this a day early, by the way, so we're actually recording on Thursday. So that's a first, by the way. The first time I've recorded on a Thursday. So I had to take a day off of work to pull this off, but it was part of the plan. So but yeah, Uncredible clips are going to start popping up on the Substack. I think I'm going to turn off the automatic email. I don't want people getting hit with repeat stuff through the Substack, so I'm not going to have those sent to the email. It will be on the Substack though if you're following like through the app. So and again, that's the Substack is at uncredible.me. I know that's a non-traditional. It's not like a .com or a .net. It's because I thought it was cool. Uncredible.me, because I'm uncredible. So that's kind of why I did that. So so check that out. The clips for episode 0. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the whole, if I can do this. ChatGPT says I can do this. I'm going to drop links to all the clips in the Substack post today, and then I'm going to schedule the clips to be released throughout the week on YouTube, so that posts are constantly coming out on the channel. And then hopefully, clipping has been taking a little bit longer than I had hoped. So for right now, I'm just going to do clips from previous episodes. I would like to get to a place where I'm able to clip the current podcast episode as well as the throwback that I'm working on, and start building a library. But either way, a library will get built of clips from the podcast. So all of that, again, is going to be on the Substack at uncredible.me. If you're not a subscriber, I highly recommend it. It's the easiest way to get all the content. And as I've mentioned in the past, the content that I put on Instagram, like photos of how my runs went and things like that, like daily stuff, that won't show up if you're just a Substack subscriber through your email. That stuff won't show up. But if you have the app, you'll be able to see those posts. You'll see the articles. And when you're in an article, I read like I do the personal, like I personally read the articles for the audio. So if you're not a reader, but you're interested in some of these articles, they're only like, a typical article is anywhere from 7 to 15 minutes long, usually more in the under 10-minute range. So you can listen to what I consider the audiobook version of the article. So check that out. Uncredible.me. Follow me, subscribe, do all that stuff on the Substack, and then you'll get all the content that way. Also, if you're more interested in just the audio format, on Spotify, all these articles and the book samples I'm dropping into a podcast of its own called Uncredible Readings. So check that out on Spotify. As always, all these links are in the show notes, so check them out. That's uncredible.me. And then something that is not really necessarily specific to the Substack, but it will be showing up there. It's more for the podcast itself. Is I have an interview scheduled for this week. I don't know when the episode will drop. It's actually for another podcast. I think we're kind of under the agreement that we're going to share the recording. So more on that coming up, but be looking for Uncredible interviews. And I'm not sure, like I said, this is going to be a shorter episode today. And part of me thinks I might, depending on how that interview goes, I might drop that interview as the main topic for this episode. Another part of me thinks I'll make it a standalone and have a separate episode for it. So I'll keep you posted on that. I'm not even going to share who or what it is just yet, because I don't know how it's going to go or if it is even going to happen. I haven't gotten confirmation. I'm supposed to get a link, I would assume today or tomorrow, to do that recording. So be looking for that. First interview, well, that's actually not true. It's my second interview because I did interview my son to test out all the technology, and the technology's good. So this will be another podcaster, and we'll see how it goes. Yeah, so let's turn our attention to our weekly update. And we are now in this marathon training for marathon number 3. It just feels like it's flying by. It's week 3 of this marathon training, and because it's Thursday, we're only going to do like a portion of it, but it just feels like it's going so fast because I'm looking at it. I really enjoyed my 2-week taper, before the Buffalo Marathon. My legs felt really strong despite them failing me. My cardio felt great, and it just felt like I did the right thing there. And with roughly 6 weeks, is that right? I don't know. I have to do the math on that. Roughly 6 weeks to the marathon. That means there's only 4 more weeks of training after this, if you don't count the taper. So I really need to get after the lifting side of things. I'm going to try to get on that this week. Have a day off tonight, and hopefully this weekend get some really good long distance, easy pace runs in. Get some longevity into my distance, play around with the fueling. But I've got the fueling, from the Buffalo Marathon, the fueling feels like I have it nailed down. I think I just didn't have enough either water or electrolytes, one or the other. Or I just pushed too hard. All those things can be true. But I didn't feel like I had a fueling issue in the Buffalo Marathon. It really felt like an electrolyte situation. I did sweat an awful lot. But anyway, let's get into week 3. So last Saturday, I did 4 miles at a 10:44 pace, which is easy for me. Sunday, I did 10 miles at an 11:24 pace. So I was keeping that intentionally slow. There were a lot of moments where I just slowed down and took a gel, took a drink, just specifically was trying to keep the pace slow so that I had longevity built into that run. It went great. It felt good. And, when I got to the end of it, I thought, man, 11:24 is still, like, if I did that, exactly that, I would still be at or around, I think I would break the 5 hour. I don't know what the actual number is for pace per mile to get under a 5. But right now I'm just chasing a sub 5 hour marathon, and that would do it. I think the 11:24 would do it. And I mean, that was like super easy for me, like in terms of cardio. Legs were still a bit sore, but keep in mind when I did that, I was only 2 weeks out from my last marathon. So I do feel my legs returning. That really showed itself on Monday when, after doing that 10-mile run, I did a 3.5 mile run at a 10-minute pace. But that run after the 10 miles the day before really felt like I was checking my watch and realizing I was going too fast. It ended up being a 10-minute per mile pace that day, but I was flying. I mean, I was just like taking it easy and looking down and going, "Ooh, I'm at 9:30. I need to chill." So I would like literally back off on purpose. Tuesday was the exact opposite. So I must have used everything I had on Monday, because coming into Tuesday, it was everything I could do to keep at 11-minute pace. And I was right around 11-minute pace per mile that day. Same distance, same exact route. And man, I was really, really struggling on Tuesday. Part of that was due to the fact that I got basically no sleep. A little caveat here. I've mentioned the pool the last couple weeks. The pool is complete, but Monday and Tuesday this week, I had some work to do on the filter that kept me up. Later than I wanted to those 2 days. And then, of course, Wednesday, I had to go into work early, which was last night. So I didn't get much sleep then. So it's been kind of a jagged week of training. But that's one reason I took tonight off, because I really need to get on a consistent schedule for like the next month before my next team meeting. It's a monthly team meeting. So I really need to build a consistent, I need to increase my mileage, keep the pace lower, and then start working in the weight training. That's kind of like where I want to be right now. So for like the next 4 weeks, I really want to buckle down, have some like ideally 38 to 42 mile weeks with some decent long runs, all easy. And I would like to get some single leg weightlifting done. So Wednesday, I wrapped it up with a 1.5 mile run. Today, I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I can't decide if today, I've been up all night. So I'm recording this at 9 o'clock in the morning. I was up all night last night. Did all the clips this morning when I got home from work. Now I'm recording the podcast. So I'm not sure if I'm going to, because I don't work tonight, I'm not sure if I'm going to sleep and then go for my run. In that case, probably be a longer run, or if I'm going to run and then go to sleep. Either way, I'm going to probably shoot for like 5 to 8 miles, depending on how it goes. And then that'll give me Friday for an easy run. And then Saturday or Sunday, we'll do a long run. So that's where we're at with week 3 of marathon training. My takeaway from the training this week, my legs are definitely coming back. And I will say, I've heard a lot of people ask the question, how long does it take to recover from a marathon? And that's sort of a difficult question to answer because it's not like you wake up one day and everything's better. 1 week afterwards, you feel like you could go for a long run and a fast run. But 2 weeks later, you still feel the lingering effects of it on your overall personality, your being. You just kind of feel it. I will say this week, other than Tuesday when I didn't get much sleep, I felt like myself. I felt like I could run, do everything that I was doing pre-marathon. So I think I'm about there. We're about 3 weeks out now from the marathon. So like I said, legs are coming back. I had some sore days. But right now my priority needs to be rest and recovery and then long, easy runs. Because my goal for this training block is to just, what I wouldn't give at this point to run 11-minute miles for an entire marathon. That would be fantastic. So that's where I'm at right now. This is week 3 of marathon number 3 training. All right, now let's turn our attention to what's been going on in the news and get my uncredible take on all of that. And this is kind of going to serve as a main topic as well. Like I said, this episode is probably going to be shorter or normal length with that interview that I was talking about. Right now I'm leaning towards shorter, but we'll see how the production process goes and how the interview goes tomorrow. But in the news, I wanted to talk, I did this a couple episodes ago where I talked about phrases, and I've done it in a couple different episodes where I talk about like phrases or terminology that gets used that feels like it's coached or it's propaganda. Now, I'm not saying it's necessarily propaganda, but it somehow finds its way into these news talking points and podcasters, and it just starts to get repeated. And I bumped into one when I was listening to Caleb Hammer on the Joe Rogan show. I was listening to it this week. I don't know when he was actually on the episode, but the phrase was ideologically captured. And Caleb Hammer was using that a lot in his episode with Rogan, saying people were ideologically captured. And then I was listening to, I think it was the Piers Morgan Uncensored. I'm pretty sure that's where I heard it again, like back to back on episodes that were super close to each other. Now, I've heard Caleb use that terminology before, and I've heard Rogan use it, but I never really honed in on it. And I wanted to take a quick look at it and see, like, what does it mean? There we go. What does it mean? And like, what exactly is it referring to? And why are people so interested in using it? And I just did you just saw me do a quick Google search here. So ideological capture refers to the process by which an institution, organization, or profession abandons its core mission, such as objective truth-seeking or public service, to serve a specific political or social worldview. So I'm not sure that's how the term is being used, but the idea is people are so captured by an ideology that they're not thinking straight. That seems to be the way in which it's used. And what I noticed particularly about the ways I heard it being used in these podcasts was it was sort of like a way to make, I think discredit is the right word, discredit in opposition. And so if we say it's ideologically captured, we're implying that they're not thinking it through. And Whether that's right or not, I don't know, because I think that's true of some people, that they're ideologically captured. But as I was thinking about it, I thought we're all on some level captured by our ideology. It's very difficult to separate oneself from their ideology. We all want to believe that we're critical thinkers, but everyone comes to their position through some type of either reasoning or sense of feeling. And they're truly convinced of it. And I feel like it's kind of like when I talked about a couple weeks ago when the commenter accused me of lying, when I was like, I mean, lying assumes intent. And I feel like for someone to be ideologically captured, they have to not think about what they're doing and what they're promoting. And I do think there are people who do that, but I think it's very difficult to say that without having a conversation. And so I feel like this is being used to avoid arguments from the other side. And I thought it was interesting, particularly coming from Caleb Hammer, Joe Rogan, and it actually seems like it was directed on some level to the left, but we definitely see this ideological capturing on both sides. And I'm not 100% sure, as I think about it, how you avoid that. I mean, I've given ideas on how to avoid that in previous episodes where I've talked about how important it is to listen widely. And we did the episode where we actually rewound the clock and looked at Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro. And I do want to do this again, but with podcasts that I listen to and see what they were saying on similar dates, distances back. But I did notice this term, ideologically captured, and I was kind of honed in on it because it kind of seemed like when I took homiletics, which was like preaching or speaking class, basically speech. I remember they told us to avoid ums and ahs, but also to avoid what they call the thinking phrases when you're speaking. And so avoid terms that you use to fill the space. So like, I kind of got the impression when I was hearing this phrase ideologically captured, I kind of felt like it was an intellectual way of, or an intellectual phrase to cover a thought process. So when Caleb was thinking about how to describe his opponents and he was coming up short, he was just saying they were ideologically captured, which tends to be something that people agree with. And they go along with it and go, oh yeah, they're ideologically captured. Now, you definitely run into these people, but I think in order to have a genuine debate or an objective criticism of another position, you can't lean on that. And because I think when you say a group is ideologically captured, what I think you're doing is I think you're taking a group of people who may have different reasons for believing something and putting them in a bucket and then not dealing with their argument. And that kind of seems, and sometimes you have to speak that way when you're talking in generalities the way they were. But I think if we assume our opposition is captured by their ideology, then if that's our assumption, then we stop debate. And so it's like if I can't get through to you because you're so captured by your ideology that you won't listen to reason. If both sides think that, or if all sides think that, I shouldn't say both as if there's only two, but if both sides think that, then the conversation ends there because I'm giving you my reasons, not believing you'll listen to them because you can't hear them. Like if I think you're in a cult and you can't be persuaded, then why am I going to persuade you? And that kind of seems like one of the things that happens when you start listening to your own type of media is you just get into this echo chamber where you reinforce your own ideas. The only way to get out of that is to not assume that. So obviously when you're speaking in generalities and you're observing how a group is acting, this is probably an adequate phrase. And groups of people do get captured by an ideology. We saw that last week when we talked about that experiment, that the wave experiment where the teacher convinced his class that that they should follow the wave, and they all got captured by the ideology. So the first one is ideologically captured. So be listening to that phrase and how it's being used. Like I said, the way it seemed like it was being used was sort of like a thinking word for Caleb, and I think other people were using it in a different way, but specifically in that episode, that's kind of how it seemed like it was being used. And then another one popped up to me, and this was on Piers Morgan Uncensored. I don't remember who. Sometimes I listen to that show as sort of background noise for other things that I do. Sometimes it's a run. Sometimes it's when I'm working on the pool or working on a project. I just kind of flip that on and listen to the debate sort of haphazardly. And there was one individual who said I can't even remember what they were probably talking about. I'm not up on the news on all this stuff, but a couple of the episodes were about a stabbing over in England. I think that's what it was about. They all kind of merged together for me. But the guy called, he goes, "We definitely need an official investigation of the situation." And I thought, whenever I hear that, especially since the Epstein files and this whole thing, whenever somebody says we need an official investigation, another situation where this phrase was used was the bombing of the Iranian school, like where the schoolgirls were bombed or whatever. Oh, we're looking into it. We're doing an official investigation, and when the investigation's over, we'll let you know. But it's such a stall tactic, and there's either never an investigation, or there's just, yes, we did the investigation, and here's what we came to, and it's like it's never satisfactory, these official investigations. And when somebody says, like whenever you hear somebody being challenged, like, what do you think about this? And then their response is, well, we need to wait till there's an official investigation. It's like, you're just dodging the question. Like, you definitely have an opinion. You're either avoiding saying what's obvious, or, I mean, I guess you could argue there's wisdom in waiting to hear more details. We see this all the time. News is so rapid anymore that people jump to conclusions, new information comes out, and then we have to correct those assumptions. But whenever I hear somebody say, like, oh, we need to wait till there's an official investigation, I'm always just sort of like, yeah, great. And you know what the problem with official investigations are? The officials investigating are investigating themselves. And what we really need is a non-official investigation, the kind where people who are not part of the group are investigating it so that it can be honest and objective. That, I'd be very interested in that. I don't know what you would call that. An outside investigation, whatever you call that. But these official investigations where you get the official story is really just propaganda. It's like, oh yeah, we investigated it and we definitely didn't do that, or we didn't find any fault or whatever. Like, it never comes out. Whenever you hear official investigation, there's a lot of BS floating around that phrase. So I put in my notes, it just means nothing. It means I'm not going to answer the question. And the other thing is, when people lean on the official investigation as if it was like done well, it's like, oh, well, the official investigation said this. Well, the official investigation was probably bullcrap. So, you know, it's like, I didn't trust the officials doing the investigation. So why would I trust their investigation results? Like, I don't understand that. So ideologically captured was one, official investigation was another. And now this last one, I could not believe that this clip, I'm trying to think of the name of the guy it's a Fox News host. This came across my feed, and this will probably serve as the main topic for this episode if I don't throw the interview tomorrow in for the main topic. But man, this I think it's Jesse Waters. I think that's who it was. I'll share the clip and then I'll come back to it. But man, what's happened with this Iran war this past week has just been unbelievable. But let's look at this clip real quick of Jesse Waters.
CENTCOM called our response proportional, but sources say we're taking out Iranian air defenses, radar systems all along the strait, and we're not finished. Technically, I know it doesn't seem like it, but we're still in a ceasefire. And the president continues to say we're close to a deal.
So I added the circus music to that, by the way. I think that's pretty obvious. I could not. When that came through my Facebook feed, I was just like, you got to be kidding me. It's like, I know it sounds crazy, but we're still in a ceasefire, but both sides are still shooting. It's like, do you guys hear yourself? So basically my uncredible understanding of what happened this week was both sides broke the ceasefire. Somehow Iran took down I think it was an Apache helicopter, one of our helicopters. No military servicemen were killed from the U.S. in that particular strike. The U.S. has since begun bombing different, specific things. And then Trump came out and, told us that they've been sneaking oil through or letting oil through, billions of dollars or billions of, gallons, barrels, whatever it is. His inflating of the situation. And just talked about how much oil they've been getting through a special thing, and we control the Straits of Hormuz and all this. But the funniest thing was we're supposed to be in a ceasefire, and we're not in a ceasefire. And I got to thinking about it this week. I was like, they use, I should say, that this Trump administration, specifically surrounding this particular this Iran war, everything they say is the opposite of what's true. Everything they say is the opposite of what's true. I mean, if you go back, they said it was going to be weeks, not months. Oh, it's definitely going to be months, right? It's already at months. And they said we're in a ceasefire, and they continue to fire. It's like go back to the 12-day war. Their entire nuclear program was obliterated. And now the reason we're at war a couple months later is because of their nuclear program. It's like literally everything they say, we find out wasn't true. And one of the craziest things was, we keep hearing that their Navy and their air and their military is all destroyed, but then we also hear that we're going to destroy it. It's like both things are true at the same time. Like, oh, we've already decimated decimated's another word that like they don't know the meaning of, but like we've decimated their military. They're completely destroyed. There's nothing left of them. Then who are we fighting? Like, oh, it's really terrible for them. Oh, so then how are they shooting missiles? Oh, their missile program's been shot down. It's like, if they're totally obliterated, they have no military, their leadership's in shambles, and they're struggling, then how are they still doing what they're doing? The things don't make sense. And I get to a point where I'm like, everything they say isn't true. And then I start to wonder, like, is there military? Do we have control of the Strait of Hormuz? Did oil actually come through? I mean, who knows? Who knows? I mean, oil prices are... I haven't looked at the barrel. I'd be careful, but because I made fun of these guys for, you know what? Let's look it up. This is, after all, an Uncredible podcast. Let's see what we're at with oil. Let's see if I can find the same one that I was using before. Is this the one? Yep. Yeah, so 90. It's funny. I was hesitant to say this because I thought maybe it had dropped. So when we looked at this chart, I probably won't share this, but when we looked at this chart a couple of weeks ago, I think we were sitting at around $100 a barrel. It had reached the height earlier in the war of 120. And it's funny because I just heard that the news report was that it was going to get down to 2,000 levels or something, like a crazy number. But we're still, according to this chart that I'm looking at, we're still right at $90 a barrel. So, that's still on the high side. I feel like I heard 80 the other day, but it's almost like they know it's going to go up, and it'll be interesting to see if it does, because they're leaning on that right now. That in the stock market, Trump in his interview was leaning on that as his, like, yeah, I don't know what people are complaining about because the stock market's going up. And now he's saying that the result of all this is we're definitely going to have a deal soon, and we're going to obliterate them and all that, and oil prices are about to come down. So they're probably not about to come down, but we'll see. We'll see if I'm right about that. So I'll wrap up the Uncredible news segment here with my Uncredible take, which is basically this is why you can't count ceasefire days as not war days. We talked about this a couple weeks ago when I was addressing one of my commenters, and they said, oh, it hasn't actually been that long. And I think there's a couple of weeks where Trump was claiming that when when the war was on pause, those days didn't count. He did. I don't know if he explicitly said that, but he was kind of implying that. But this is why you can't do that, because we're still at war. We're still in conflict with them. As long as we're blocking the Straits of Hormuz or managing, as long as all that stuff's going on, you're at war. And right now we've been in this conflict for roughly 15 weeks or 3.5 months. So that's just the reality of it. We're going on 4 months now, and we're getting into the territory where we're going to start saying half a year, and then it becomes a forever war. I do think this is going to get wrapped up, especially with the way things escalated this past week with that helicopter going down, and now Trump seems to be turning up the both the rhetoric and the strikes on Iran. So I do think we may be coming to the conclusion of this, but I hope we don't go into this like forever war where we do regime change. I do think it was interesting. I go back to when I was talking about, I don't know what episode this was, but if you go back far enough in my episodes, we talk about like a forever defense or something like that. Always having a justification for a defense. Trump's rhetoric after that Apache helicopter went down was hilarious, because it was like, oh, we can't let this stand. They shot down one of our helicopters. And I'm like, we have to defend ourselves. It's like, dude, if you were punching a kid over and over and over, and the kid kicked you, and you said, oh, he kicked me, now I have to, like, you were starting it. And it's just more of this nonsense where you go, this back and forth will never end because someone finds a justification somewhere. Like, we've been bombing the crap out of them, blocking their, crushing their economy for upwards of 3.5 months. And they finally take down a helicopter of ours, and we're going to act like now we have to defend ourselves. Like, that's not how defense works. But anyway, my uncredible take is all these words that the administration is using in relationship to this conflict seem like they have the opposite meaning. It's almost like they're trying to convince us that the opposite isn't true, but the opposite is true. So right now, my hunch is, because they're talking so much about how the price of the oil at the pump is going to go down, my guess is it's about to go up. That's my hunch right now. So we'll see. All right, let's get into our podcast feature. And I'm kind of excited about this one because this is a podcast that was one of my early podcast features. I came across them. I think they might have been on episode 7 or 8. Maybe they were on 10 or 11. I can't remember. But it's called the Raising Canes podcast, and that's Raising Canes, Kanes. I remember having difficulty finding this podcast. It's saved in my Spotify now, but I remember having trouble finding it at the time when I did a search, because I think there's a restaurant with a similar name, so it made it difficult to find the podcast. But I went back and listened to them again, episode 24 on communication. And the quality of the podcast is definitely getting better. They're spending a lot of time adding in clips and things that are funny. But basically, as a little bit of a refresher, it's kind of like a dad doing homeschooling in front of you. And, if you are a homeschool parent, these episodes might be fun for your kids to listen to. Totally family friendly. It's him with his 2 sons, a father with his 2 sons. And they're just talking about a subject matter. Now, I think the one I listened to and the one I highlighted way back at the beginning of my podcast was an episode on Nintendo and Genesis, and it was a really good episode. I think I also listened to something about the American Revolution, possibly. But those were some of the earlier episodes. I haven't listened for a while, and jumped back into it this week and looked at episode 24 on communication. And wow, what a flashback. And it was fun listening to this to see the gap in technological understanding from the dad who's trying to walk them through, like, how did we get from no phones, like how did communication, like how do we get our information from person to person, and how that's developed over the last 100-200 years. And it was fascinating to see him in real time realize the things that his kids don't understand and don't know. And if you've ever seen these clips of, like, they take a Walkman and give it to a kid and let them try to figure out how it works, it kind of had that feel to it as you're listening to this episode, because, there's a point where he remembers phone books and he's like, oh yeah, you guys don't even know what a phone book is. Like you never seen a phone book. And they were everywhere when we were kids. And just watching him go through that, rotary phones, he went even further back to Morse code, and just all the technologies that were used in order for communication to get further and further and faster and faster. It's a really fun episode, and it's fun listening to him reminisce about some of the things we had in the late 80s, early 90s as well, and realizing like all that technology's gone. And I've talked about a lot of that stuff. I've written articles about that on the Substack, about some of the technology that we just may never see again and that our kids won't understand. And, I have one article on the Substack where I talk about wondering what my grandfather's 8-track player was, and then thinking, okay, so I never listened to an 8-track. I knew what it was. My dad showed it. I've seen the cassettes, but I've never actually listened to an 8-track. What things will our kids, well, I think grandkids is better, but what things will our grandkids see on our shelves that they won't understand? They'll be like, oh, my grandfather used to have this thing sitting on his TV, but we never saw it used. It could be a PS5. It could be a laptop. It could be a cell phone or a tablet. We don't know. My son had just turned 18 in February. He's still years off of having kids who would then be a decade or more away from being able to start developing those memories. And who knows where AI is going to take us in the next 15 to 20 years. It's wild to think about that. But this episode was fun. It's always a pleasure to listen to it because his kids are just, they're unhinged. I do wonder when I'm listening to it as a podcaster how much editing he does, because there's times in the episode where you could tell he's having this back and forth because he wants to get through the information, but he wants his kids to have their kids are being goofy. And it just, you really get that feel of like trying to teach your kids something and them just being all over the place. And you feel that as the listener. So it's really good. Also, totally off subject, but one of the things that one of the things that him and his kids are talking about is, I don't know how they got into the subject of talking about dogs, but they came to this weird realization that all the dogs from the 90s, because of the age of dogs, are all dead. And it was just this really weird moment where he's like, oh yeah, I guess every dog that was in the 90s is dead. And he's like, that's a weird fact that is probably true. I think they finally decided that there could be 1 or 2 dogs out there that are still alive, but not very many, just based on their age. So yeah, check out that. It's called Raising Canes. The one I listened to was episode 24 on communication. They've got a ton of great stuff on there though. Go through there, especially if you have kids that you're trying to teach. Very wholesome. I say kids you're trying to teach because even if you're not homeschooling, maybe your child is asking questions about some of the subjects they've covered. Go through their Spotify or whatever, however you listen to podcasts, and see if any of it matches up, and they can listen to it and gain that information. So, all right, let's get into our quote of the week. And this quote comes from Oprah Winfrey. Don't consider the source as much as the quote itself. I'll try to get this centered. A couple new camera locations here today, so we'll see if we nail it. The quote is, "Where there is no struggle, there is no strength. Where there is no struggle, there is no strength." And that is a powerful, powerful quote. It's a realization that is as frustrating as it is accurate, because the reality is, to get where you want to go, wherever that is, whatever you want to achieve in life, it's going to be accompanied by struggle, and your desire to want it and to go after it has to be greater than whatever that struggle is. So whatever stands in your way, if you want to run a marathon, okay, whatever stands in your way, you have to be willing to endure. For me, if you want to start a podcast, if you want to write articles, if you want to do these things, you have to be willing to endure the struggle that comes with that. And the best things that you can obtain are things that are obtained through trial and tribulation. those are the things that make us who we are and add value to those achievements. The reason running a marathon is so revered in our culture right now, and now we're getting into the ultras, is because it's a hard thing. You can't fake running a marathon. You can't fake it. I mean, look, even the ones I've done where I've done it in 5 hours, I had to walk most of it, but I still completed it. Like 26 miles, 26.2 miles is a lot of distance. And you don't just wake up one morning and do that. It requires commitment, effort, energy, focus. And those are things that most people just really aren't willing to put in. They're just not willing to do it. The same is true of anything that you want to achieve. Maybe you're trying to get a better physique. You want to lose weight. It's going to require time, effort, energy, and struggle. And unfortunately, there is no path to those good things that doesn't require struggle. And it's something our society really needs to understand and get a grip on, because, and I think we are. I think there's a large swath of people right now who are just understanding that difficulty breeds, that struggle breeds what is good. In order to gain the strength that you need, you have to go through that struggle, and that struggle produces the strength. And so it's like if you want it, you have to struggle to get it, and that's what makes it worth it. So again, where there is no struggle, there is no strength. Great quote. Something to remember. If you're going through some struggle, if you're having some difficulty achieving whatever it is you're chasing, that's part of the process, and you're in a good place. If you're struggling, that means you're getting there. So you're building something. It may not be what you want, but you're building something. So let's go ahead and close it out. Again, if we didn't really have a main topic today, but I do plan to drop the interview, and I may even drop the interview into this episode when it's final production. But for this week, we'll just wrap things up with remember to check out the Substack on uncredible.me. All the articles, podcasts, Uncredible readings, all that stuff is on there. All the Instagram posts, all that stuff is going to be on there. If you're listening on Spotify, please like and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, do the same. Give us the thumbs up. Let us know that you're out there. Feel free to comment too. I don't get a lot of comments on these. YouTube's been pretty quiet. I'm hoping that when I start dropping the past clips, that'll change, but we'll see. We'll just keep doing the work week by week. Uncredible merch. Yeah. So wearing this one again. This is one of the ones that I love this shirt, and I need to get this shirt in a different shirt style. As I've mentioned in the past, when you order these shirts, you kind of, you get the design. It looks good when you first get it, but the ones that I've had the most fading from are the cotton shirts. They're the cheapest ones too, though. So it's sort of like you're looking on there and you're going, do I really need to pay a little bit more for the active t-shirt? The answer is yes, you do. If you want it to last, get the active t-shirt. That's the one that I've had the most success with. It's 100% polyester, but the logo gets printed on there. I don't know what they're using, if they do something to it, but it stays on there. It does not come off. I haven't had any of them crack. I'm sure at some point those are going to start cracking and peeling, but they haven't yet. And I'm pushing a year now having those shirts. Maybe, it's interesting. I remember I bought my first shirt with $100 that I won from my work steps thing, and that would have been last October. So you're figuring about 9 months now, but they're doing that again, so I'm going to be chasing that. Maybe I'll get more merch that way, get some of these ones replaced that I want. But again, if you want some merch, all these logos, stickers, it can go on stickers, cups, mugs, whatever, hats. Check out merch.uncredible.me. Link will be in the description. If you're into Instagram, that's where I'm mostly active in terms of social media, at Jeremy Lundmark. Again, link in the show notes. And with that, I'll just say thanks for listening to the Uncredible Podcast. Appreciate all the support. Keep coming back to watch more. Like, subscribe, as I said. And thanks for listening. And remember, stay uncredible.